California, Proposition 15 explained, and we'll tell you exactly how it's going to affect Proposition 13. Hey there, Christian Walsh, Coldwell Banker Wire Associates. We are real estate brokers based in Southern California who specialize in helping tenants and landlords, buyers and sellers throughout California and beyond. And we are spending this week giving updates on important real estate propositions that are coming up on November 3rd. I don't know if you heard there's an election. It's a big one. So we're here to offer explanations on some of the bills that are real estate related. This is a big update on Proposition 15, which will change the way things are done for property taxes in the state of California. Here's what we're going to cover in this video. We're going to explain exactly what Proposition 15 says. We're going to give you a quick overview on Proposition 13 and use Warren Buffett's Ocean View house in Laguna Beach as an example of how Proposition 13 works. We're going to tell you exactly who pays property taxes on commercial properties. We're going to tell you where the extra money that's generated from this proposition, where that money will go. We're going to explain what a yes means and a no means, and we're going to give Proposition 15 pros and cons. So we've got a lot of ground to cover. If you're ready, hit that like button and let's get started. Proposition 13 in California is a big deal, and this sets the property tax rate for all real estate in the state of California. This was passed in 1978 and essentially sets the property tax rate at 1% of the sales price. So whatever the piece of real estate sells for, that will be the assessed value. And 1% of that will be the property tax bill. Now, some areas add a little bit more, 1.05 for example, but 1% is the base. It can only go up 2% every year, or the cost of inflation, whichever's lower. In the state of California, as we will show you, what can happen is the property tax assessed value can get way out of whack from the actual market value. Well, let's run through a real life example of the power of Proposition 13 using a property that Warren Buffett owned in Laguna Beach, not too far from here, in Emerald Bay. So just to clarify, Proposition 15 will not affect residential property values, but this shows you what has happened to all properties because all properties in California fall under this. So this is an example of what can happen with values over time. So Warren Buffett bought an ocean view home in a community called Emerald Bay in 1971 in April for $150,000. I'm sure at the time it seemed like a fortune. 1978, along comes Proposition 13, and Proposition 13 says that they are going to use the value of his home at that time, and his property taxes can only go up 2% every year. And when Warren sold in October of 2018, it traded at a price of $7.47 million. At the time, the tax assessor's office had the property appraised at $286,000. His yearly property tax bill was about $2,900. The new owner, who just paid $7.47 million, her property tax bill was $76,000 a year. That was an increase of over 2,500%. So let's dive in to Prop 15 and see exactly what it covers. So what it's going to do is it's going to change the way property tax is calculated for commercial properties. It's going to create what is known as a split tax roll. So residential, multifamily apartments, etc., and agricultural land will stay the way they are, which is the property tax assessed value is set when the property sells. Other commercial properties, so industrial, retail, office, they're going to be taxed differently. So the rate will stay the same. It'll still stay the 1%, but their values are going to be reassessed. They're going to be brought to current market value. And this will dramatically change the property tax bill for properties that have been owned for a long, long time. So what does a reassessment schedule look like? So starting in fiscal year 2022, 2023, properties will be reassessed to market value. If the property has more than 50% small business, so a retail strip center, for example, if more than 50% are considered small businesses, that schedule will be pushed to the 2025-2026 fiscal year. It could be pushed even further by legislation. So that's when the market value will be reset, and that will increase the property tax bills for the commercial properties that fall under this bill. Now, there are some exclusions. If the value of the property is less than $3 million, or the aggregate value of an owner's property are less than $3 million, they will be exempt from this bill. Another thing this bill does is it removes personal property tax for small business owners. So this will actually reduce tax bills for some folks out there. How much money is it going to generate, and where is that money going to go? So this is going to generate a big pile of money, is the easiest way to put it. So estimates show around 11.5 to 12.5 billion could be potentially generated by increasing the property taxes on commercial property owners. So let's run through where that money is going to go. So about $1 billion will be set aside to help the state and local areas implement this, and also to help make up for the personal property tax exemption that's built into the bill. So there goes $1 billion. So what's left over? Anywhere from 6.5 to 11.5 billion, depending on who's estimated. That'll be split between local government and schools. So 60% will go to local government, that's counties, cities, and local areas. The other 40% will go to community colleges and schools, and they've pledged a minimum of $100 per student. Here's an important point before you figure out if you're going to vote yes or no on the bill. Who actually pays the property taxes? So that potential $12.5 billion, who is that money going to come from? It's not necessarily the owner of the property like you'd think. So residential properties, it's easy. Typically, the owner of the residential property, they pay the property taxes. But when it comes to a commercial property, it's a very different story. Now, the majority of commercial properties are occupied by tenants on leases. Those leases come in various forms for commercial properties. Could be what's known as triple net, could be a full service or a modified gross. Those are some of the different types of leases that are out there, depending on the property. But here's what happens. Those leases are structured such they pass on the expenses to the tenant. And guess what? Property taxes are one of those expenses. So ultimately, if property taxes are increased, it will not be the owner of the property who pays it. It will be the tenants. It will be passed directly down to the small business owners or large business owners. Anybody who does not own the property is going to be footing the bill. Any of those tenants who don't own it are going to be footing the bill. So it's important to know property taxes on commercial properties are paid by the tenants in the majority of cases. So what does a yes mean and what does a no mean? Like I joked in my Proposition 21 video, sometimes yes means no, no means yes. In this bill, a yes means that property taxes on commercial properties over $3 million would go up in order to provide funding for local schools and communities. A no means that property taxes will stay the same on commercial properties. We won't have a split tax roll, and there will be no additional funding for local schools and communities. And we said we'd run through the pros and cons. These are the pros and cons from the official voter's guide. So the pros, it closes property tax loopholes benefiting wealthy corporation, cuts taxes, this is the personal property taxes for small business, protects homeowners and renters because it does not apply to residential, requires full transparency, and reclaims billions of dollars for schools and local communities. That is the pro according to the pro side. The cons according to the con side. It's a $12.5 billion tax increase that raises the cost of living and raises the cost of everything we buy. Food, gas, utilities, daycare, healthcare, makes everything more expensive because ultimately these costs are passed on. So that is the con. I hope that was helpful. We ran through a lot of ground, tried to cover exactly what Proposition 15 is going to do, how it's going to create a split tax roll, and change Proposition 13. If you've liked this video and you haven't done it yet, please hit that like button. Comment below how you're going to vote. Keep it civil, please. Just make sure you do vote. We need everyone's voice to be heard. Down below, I have the full text of the bill and some other resources so you can review it. I also have a link to my email newsletter. I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe so that we can keep you up to date on content for tenants and landlords, buyers and sellers throughout the United States. This is Christian Walsh, Coldwell Banker Wire Associates. I appreciate you watching, and I appreciate you.